This video contains discussion of content that may be distressing. Discretion is advised.
Go. G'day Melbourne Storm fans and welcome to this special post-season edition of the Graveyard Shift. I hope you're all still celebrating the Premiership victory from a couple of weeks back. Poleman and I thought it was time to get back together and we decided to bring a special treat for you. This is a gentleman who, well, let's say 22 years ago, you might not have heard his name. Then all of a sudden he was in the very first Melbourne Storm's team. About 18 months later, he's a Melbourne Storm Premiership hero, scoring a try in that big match. And of course, he's been a name that we've all known pretty well. He was a real character around the club. And all these years on, we're delighted we've tracked down the one and only Mr. Ben Roarty. Poleman, Ben Roarty, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having us, Stubbs and Michael. I appreciate the recall to the media after so long. So I might struggle to recall some of the memories over the years, but we'll have fun chatting about it and see what I can come up with for the next hour or so.
We absolutely will. And it doesn't matter. Sometimes when you don't have the full memory, it makes it even more interesting and enjoyable for us. So feel free to pour mayo on your stories as much as you like.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
I've done a bit of digging on the internet as well. So maybe we'll bring up some things that is back in the back of the mind, but we'll see how we go. So basically, just for our listeners and viewers, we just sort of want to go through, I guess, your life in rugby league and after rugby league, obviously with a big focus on your years at Melbourne Storm. And so just starting off, there's actually, when I was trying to research you, I guess, there isn't much about your early life. So do you want to just tell us a bit about your early life, where you grew up? You're from Sydney, I believe, where you played your junior rugby league. And then how did you end up at Melbourne Storm? Because obviously,
no problem in the world. I grew up in Western Sydney in a place called Liverpool, or Moorebank in Liverpool. Pretty, not a really well-off area, but I had beautiful parents. Liverpool's pretty rough area, a lot of drug use and domestic violence and thieving and stuff like that. So I had beautiful parents and grew up in a great area. And then we used to drive 15, 20 minutes and play at a local junior club called St. Christopher's. And I played 15 seasons there. And I was lucky enough, I was one of those kids, everybody else seemed to get in the school representative teams and the junior representative teams. But from the age of, my whole schooling from grade 1 to grade 12, there was no rugby league in our schools. It was all Aussie rules. So I'd play Aussie rules at school and then just weekend I'd play rugby league to fill in the gaps. So I still hadn't made a representative team till I was 17. Which this day and age, people are hanging their boots up at 17 if they haven't made under 12s, 13s, 14s, 15s, 16s. And I just, stuck with it, had great parents, great role models who were really strong-minded and positive people. And so finally made a representative team under 17s for Canterbury Bulldogs. Then I moved into under 19s, under 21s, reserve grade. I played 2 years reserve grade. Started to get a little bit of a contract there, about $20,000, $30,000, and thought I was ready for first grade. Chris Anderson was the first grade coach at the time, and he said, "No, you're not ready for first grade at this club." So in the meantime, I was doing an apprenticeship, being a fitter and machinist, working with the State Rail, New South Wales. So just kept doing that. And then just at the end of when I turned about 21, I think it was, I was reading a newspaper at work one day, just become a tradesman, and I read a newspaper and it said Melbourne Storm is starting a rugby league team in Victoria, and Chris Anderson's left Canterbury to go there. And I was reading it, and I rang my manager. I said, "Mate, Melbourne Storm starting. Let's give Chris Anderson a ring. He knows me, but he didn't give me a chance up here." So Chris said, "Yeah, come for a meeting." We met at a pub in Bankstown somewhere, and we got chatting. And he got the Daily Telegraph, and he wrote a contract on the back of a newspaper, on the back page, the sport page, and I signed it. And I just signed up for Melbourne Storm for 2 years at lunchtime. And I had the lucky opportunity. I went back to my workplace and sat in the boss's office with my feet on the table. When we all say we're going to win the Lotto, and we're going to tell the boss to shove it up his backside and walk. He walked in, he said, "What the effing hell are you doing with your feet on my table?" I said, "I quit." You can't quit. You can't quit. I said, "Mate, I just signed with Melbourne Storm, brother. I'm out of here." He goes, "How much notice are you going to give?" I said, "Well, today's Tuesday, and Chris Anderson wants me in Melbourne on Friday." So I'd signed up on the spot. I had to go home and tell my mum I was moving out of home. She goes, "Oh, that's nice. When?" I said, "Tomorrow." So flew down to Melbourne with nothing more than probably the same clothes I still wear today. Rusty old pair of jeans and a couple of T-shirts and shoes, and had zero and the journey began. The journey began.
Excellent.
Where'd you end up living? You must did someone at the Storm put you up? Did you end up bunking in with a teammate or something?
Yeah, luckily enough, Storm looked after all the new players, and I moved down to Richmond, down in Bendigo Street, Richmond, and I moved in with Craig Smith, the famous winger. He's probably in the photo in the background. He scored the try. He was a lower
Might have been unconscious.
He's
my
there
might
somewhere.
be.
But he was a lower grade winger with myself in the same team, and he'd moved down as well, so we lived together for a little while. So, and then I moved from there into a house with Rusty Bowden as well. If you want to have a laugh, he's a man you need to talk to as well. So
he'll be next on our hit list. Don't worry, I remember his antics.
You laugh at him. He's full of shit, but the funniest man alive. So that's how it all started.
Excellent. I just got a quick question about. I've been doing a lot of research and about the Super League war. Like, so you were at Canterbury when that was all going down, playing reserve grade. Can you tell us a bit about that? Were you sort of involved in any of those meetings or anything like that, or are you?
Missed out, brother. I missed out in the ching. What happened? I was in under 21s. I was 19 at the time, and Canterbury said, we're not going to have an under 21s next year. We're going to pull out, go and play local. It's called Metropolitan Cup, which is a second division. So we're going to pay you to play Metropolitan Cup. We're going to harden you up. You're going to toughen yourself up to play against the men, because it's fully grown men in the first grade there. And then you'll come back and play reserve grade a year later. So I was out at Moorebank Metro Cup, doing reasonably well down there as a kid, 19 or 20. And then Super League come in, and they went into reserve grade at Canterbury in first grade, and they had open checkbooks. And at that time, I was down at Moorebank Metropolitan Cup. Some of the guys who actually played reserve grade, they never went on and played first grade. They later made a fair bit of money in those 2 years, but I missed out, mate. I was on $5,000 that year.
Oh,
and
wow.
people who, I was above in the picking list. They'd sent me away to harden up and toughen up, playing as a kid playing against the men in that grade.
Yeah.
And they made some $50,000-$60,000 contracts, while people like Laurie Daly and Bradley Clyde, the best players the world's ever seen, got 7-year contracts at $700,000 a year, knowing full well they were only going to play 3 or 4 years. So they were still getting paid. I think another 1 or 2 million after they retired. So I wasn't quick enough to get born. If it would have been another 2 years later, I might have made a modest 100 or 200 grand, but I missed out. But
like the draw, really, isn't it? Didn't Jim Dimmick play for Moorebank? Because he had a fallout with Anderson, so wasn't he playing for Moorebank?
He probably got dropped back there. It was a feeder club, like they do the feeder clubs these days. And there was a few first graders running around there, and I played for Moorebank Metropolitan Cup, and that was the town that I lived in, Moorebank. So I played that season for him, but other times I was playing against Moorebank, so the crowd hated me. I'd go back there playing for St. Christopher's or whoever, and they'd yell out from the sidelines, kill him, kill 13, break his arms, kill him, break his legs, and I'd score a try and look over the crowd and stick my finger up to wind them up more and more and walk off the field not interested, but they all they hated me because I lived there but didn't play for them other than that Metropolitan Cup year.
Wow.
The Super League year.
Yeah, fair enough. So moving on to season 98. So I guess the first question we have is
excuse us for a second.
Sure.
I did play 97. Canterbury was Super League. And I played in the reserve. Yeah, I did play in the reserve grade team Super League for Canterbury. And but I had a modest contract, not a big Super League one. But I 2 weeks before the grand final, I was playing lock forward, and I passed the ball around to Paul Mellor, who scored a try in the corner. I tore my hamstring up in Townsville. And then I spent 2 weeks in the hyperbaric chamber in those days trying to get ready for the Super League grand final reserve grade, where Cronulla played Brisbane Broncos in the Super League one. And the day before the game, I tried the hamstring and tore it and missed out in the grand final in the Super League. Yeah, so
oh no,
that's how it finished, mate.
Well, at least you obviously made up for it in 99. So so the first question I guess about 98 is tell us about talk about first arriving in Melbourne, the pre-season. Rugby league's not known. I'm sure people would have gone like, oh, rugby's at the Wallabies. So tell us about like sort of the first few months in Melbourne, settling into a new city.
Yeah, we got down there and everybody got to know each other, and Chris pulled everybody together. We all come from around the world, New Zealand, New Guinea, obviously with Marcus, and all over Australia come together. And he was really big on bringing people together. So we, the first week I was east, that's why he said I had to be down for the Friday, because we had to go to horse races on the Saturday, which was Derby Day. And we had to go to Melbourne Cup on the Tuesday and Oaks Day on the Thursday. He wanted to get the party rolling. And we got down there and started straight away and bonded like that. And then we were all living together all around these areas, and no one knew us at all. And we were running in the heat, and we went to Puckapunyal Army Camp up there for our inaugural boot camp. And I've got a photo somewhere, and I was just this overweight 21-year-old kid with a big pot belly. And then I was running with Nick Gow and Robbie Kearns and Danny Williams, an established first grader at the time, and they were all fit as a fiddle. And I remember going, what have I got myself into here?
Yeah.
But they've always made you accommodating, and they accommodated us and helped us out. And then late in 97, just before the season started, we all went out to a pub in Toorak Road or something, what it was, and we got in a big punch-up down there.
Oh, really?
And, so the police come to training early in the week, and I'm sitting there like there's a couple of us in there. Yeah. Policeman walking, he said, listen, you're new to town, people are going to want to punch on all the time, and it's not the best way to bring a new franchise to the city of Melbourne.
Yeah.
And we've been punching on and in the streets. I won't dob anyone in these days, but I don't mind dobbing myself in. But we're down there mucking around with a couple of locals.
Yeah.
We didn't do too well out of it, actually. I got a couple of stitches and a black eye. So
really? Wow.
That was usually save that for on field.
Yeah, we got a bit outnumbered. It was probably 10 on about 2 or 3, but we still had a go. But so that was our initiation to Melbourne. I was like, wow. And then we were going to the races and starting down there. But like I was walking down the street and with Rodney Howe, and he was playing great football and a big, muscular, massive human. And I remember just like being in awe of him. But people saw us in the Storm shirts and saying, are you the new Storm team? And I go, oh, these guys play first grade, but I haven't played first grade. And that went on for, a few months and learning to like I come from, as I said, the western suburbs of Sydney. So I had one pair of blue jeans and probably some Ugg boots and no T-shirts. And Melbourne had a culture of drinking coffee, wearing black, and going out and hanging on Chapel Street or Bridge Road. And I used to hang out in Liverpool at the train station. And I'd never seen anything like this in King's Cross in Sydney. So that's all I've been experienced to.
Yeah.
So coming down here was a real eye-opener. And I sat back and learned and listened to people like Tarawa Nick Gow, Robbie Kearns, Howie, and those type of guys who've been there. And it was phenomenal that we come down and we're accepted down here.
That's awesome. Pretty quickly, I'd say.
And
embraced pretty quickly. Melbourne got behind you guys right away.
Yeah, we did. We got on the paper, and the media was pretty good to us down here. So not everyone, a few people knew who we were leading into that 98 season.
Yeah. And I mean, so let's go into round 1. So you were selected. You played in our first ever game against Illawarra. So, describe the scene, I guess, when you found out that you were going to play your first ever first grade game. So
that was phenomenal. I remember I played a trial match versus Canberra, and I think I was played second row or lock, and I started that, and I looked at our team sheet and it had the likes of all those names I went through. But Canberra had Laurie Daly, Bradley Clyde, Ricky Stewart. I'm not sure. I think Mal had been retired, but all the superstars, Mullins. And I was like, these guys are the absolute hero. And I said to myself, I'm going to get that autograph after the game because I might never see him again.
Yep.
And we played that game, and I held my own. Played another game versus another team. I can't remember, Adelaide, I think. And then that week they picked first grade, and probably to my luck, I was just there, and I was a really reasonably good defender. And the other boys, you had the big attacking guys, and I was a reasonably good defender. And they said, just get out there and tackle your ass out. Doesn't matter if you don't touch the ball this game. Just tackle. Don't miss a tackle. And it was a magical feeling to be selected, like a childhood dream, as in anyone had been selected for anything. And when a coach said, he didn't tell me, just read it out in the team list. He didn't pull me aside, so you're going to make your first grade debut like this. Chris Anderson, knowing Chris, he's got a memory about as good as mine. He probably just went, oh, he's already played first grade. Who cares? I'm not going to tell him. Just read the team sheet out. I was sitting there, I was hoping to get on the bench. And then he said, number 11 or number 12, Ben Roarty. And I'm like, I'm going to play first grade this week. And the rest is history. We went to Wollongong, played St. George, Illawarra. And that game went fast like that. It was over. Scotty Hill scored a try, and a couple of boys scored a try, and it was over. And then I still got a beautiful photo in the dressing room. We're all sitting around with our shirts off, drinking a beer, and it was one of the greatest days of my life. So I always said I was lucky. I trained hard, and I listened to the coach. I might not have been the world's best player, but I always trained as hard as this whole body could do, and I always did exactly what the coach said. And they're the type of people, hopefully, coaches like coaching. I wasn't going to try not to make any mistakes, and just do what I'm told. So that was it.
My profession actually is swim coaching. So I mean, I coach mainly teenagers, but yeah, you definitely through my years of coaching, you definitely look for the kids with good character, the hard workers, not necessarily the talent, because they generally go further than the.
Yeah, that's probably what held up with me. And a funny story, Cameron Smith come up to me in about late middle 2000s, and he said, "Oh, they still talk about you down here, Rorts. They still talk about you." And I said, "Oh, that's nice." And he goes, "They reckon you could go out drinking the whole night of piss and come straight from the nightclub in the morning and you'd win everything at training the next morning.
Yeah.
You come first in the run, the swim, the box." And I was like, "Yeah, is that what I'm famous for?" He goes, "Yeah."
That's good. I mean, that's
mentality of a...
No, it's a good, definitely a thing to be remembered for, I reckon. All right, I think we went on a 4-game winning streak, and tell us a bit about the first home game at Olympic Park, where you had the fans on the street. They had to let them in at halftime onto the running track. So yeah, was the playing group surprised?
We sat there, and I think the game got delayed by 5-10 minutes. We didn't know that people are hanging over the fences and coming, and we didn't know that. But I'd built up a bit of a rapport with a lot of people that I've been meeting in the pubs and nightclubs and all that scene that I was getting into around that time. So I'm like, I needed 20 tickets, and I didn't have any family there. It was just for friends that I'd met in nightclubs and pubs around there. And they said, "Oh, can you get tickets?" And my phone's ringing. I said, "I've never had anyone ring me ever before." And we used to get 2 grandstand tickets and 4 outer tickets for the like the Marcus Buy stand. Yep. And I was saying to these other players, "Have you got anyone coming?" They're going, "No." I said, "Can I have your tickets?" So that first game, I was handed out 24 tickets to all the locals. We've read in the paper, this could be a good thing. We want to come along. And everybody, every man and his dog come. Did you guys come to that first game?
I wasn't at the first one, unfortunately. I came not long after. I was too young to get there myself.
I was at the second game where you played Penrith on Anzac Day. That was mine.
Right.
I was at the second home game when you beat Penrith on Anzac Day.
Lovely. Good memory. Good memory.
Yeah.
So that's how it happened. We didn't know the extent of the crowd issues after that. And then Chris Johns coming after the game, the CEO, and he said, "Mate, we just opened the gates." He goes, "We don't know the full capacity we had tonight," because they got in there 21,000, which are allowed, and then they opened the gates apparently. And we were like, that many people want to come and watch us. Sydney teams aren't getting 21 or 22,000. And we were like, this is good. And Melbourne Storm's what it is today for those 4 games that we won. We won our first game. The second, third was okay. And then that first home game, if that hadn't happened, who knows what would happen? Who knows? Yeah. You could have been an Adelaide Rams, a Perth Reds. It seemed like that. It could have happened.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Make a very good point there, Ben. And that's actually something that Michael's said in the past, because we did a little segment throughout the year on clubs that had come and gone like that. And he actually made the point that all of them had a good start with the crowds. All of them looked promising at first, and they just fizzed because their first couple of seasons couldn't quite match.
Exactly right.
You guys made sure we were a success.
The fans are fickle people. We're all fickle people. Melbourne fans historically are great as well, sticking by their teams and love sport. So that was probably an advantage Melbourne had over your Adelaide or your Western Reds and other teams. So that was probably what we had here. And we delivered what we knew we could deliver. But you look around that field, you had Lazarus, Kearns. Yeah, we had a lot of internationals, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Eventually Kamali and Scotty Hill, Marcus Buy and Robbie Ross. And we had a good little team there.
I want to drill down a bit into that before you press on, Michael. At what point did you start to realise that you're actually playing in what was a really good team? Because nobody really knew what we were going to be. We'd been thrown together from a lot of different clubs. A fair few Hunter Mariners players had come down.
Yes.
Obviously, Lazarus was a legend from Queensland, but we'd had New Zealand internationals. What point did you look around and go, this is actually a really good team and we're going to win a lot of games?
Yeah, probably halfway through the season. We would have been sitting about 3rd or 4th in the first year, maybe 5th. And I started thinking, we might get to the semis this first year. And that was a dream. Like, as if you're going to get to the semis in this team that just got thrown together. And then we were like, as a group, we were, the older guys are still saying positive, keep your head there. And I was just thinking semi-finals, get to play in front of big crowds at the footy stadium. Being a youngster coming in there. But we had some, cool, calm, collected blokes. You looked at Lazarus and he's big old grumpy. I love Lazarus, but a big old grumpy Lazarus walking around, what are we doing today? And then once training started, he machine, and so was Nick Howe, and eventually Kearney come in 99. But those guys just to switch on. So that, pull your head in. Don't talk to the media too much. Just pull your head in and listen and learn and just let it go with the flow. And probably halfway through the season, I realised, probably 6-4 or something like that, 5-5 or 7-3, I can't remember. But, I thought, geez, we might be a little chance of making these semi-finals in 8th position. I think we might have come in 6th or something like that. It was
even 3rd. I think you finished as high as 3rd in 98.
First year. Oh, I can't remember.
Yeah.
But it was amazing feeling and getting there and far out. So to play in a semi-final in the NRL, wow. Just to know what was going to happen the next year. But that first year was like, wow.
Yeah.
And I had a bonus. I wasn't on a big contract, but I had a bonus to get the semi-finals. So you're a little bit cash driven as well as a youngster. Semi-finals and and a bit extra cash, and it motivates you. Money talks, bullshit walks. So we were happy to play. And I'll play harder and harder. I'll do what you want to do. Pay me more money, and you know what I mean. And it was great.
Excellent. And so 98 was obviously a good year for you. I think you're a regular starter, and you won the Rookie of the Year award that year. So tell us a bit about that.
The trophy sits here. I don't keep much memorabilia, but that bad boy sits in my office here.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
It's even bent on the end there. It was in the boot of someone's car for about 2 weeks, and the end of it got bent, but it's all part of the story, and it sits in my office here. I don't have much memorabilia around the house from my time playing rugby, but that sits in my office here. There's nowhere else for it to go. So.
Yeah. Were you surprised Were you surprised when you won it, or did you think that you were a good chance?
Never even considered it. Never thought about it. Didn't know the award existed. If you see any photos, you go around. I'd flown up to Sydney. I might have stayed in Sydney. I'd flown to Sydney, and just before the presentation night, I had an altercation in Sydney at Coogee Bay Hotel. Coogee Bay Hotel, just self-defence. But I'd broken my thumb. So my thumb was sitting up swollen and like that. And they give me the trophy, and I've got a massively broken thumb. I hadn't had surgery on it yet. And I'm holding the trophy and trying to smile and keep it a bit of a secret. I had a broken thumb, and so I look at the photographs now and say, no, it's great that I had the trophy, but also sit there with a smashed thumb, which, I had a big metal plate and 5 screws put in it a little bit later. So it's great.
Is it this is a bit of a side question, but obviously you're pretty anonymous in Melbourne, as a lot of the Storm players are. But you go back to Sydney, you've played a full season in first grade, you're a bit more noticeable. Did you find that when you'd go back to Sydney, that people start noticing
me a lot, and it continued a lot? The Bulldogs supporters knew me a lot more.
Oh, wow. Yep.
Yeah, I went back there because, I did reasonably well in reserve grade. I got a best and fairest award. So the Bulldog supporters like watching their youngsters come through and play.
Yep.
So when I'd come back from Melbourne and won the premiership, or even in 98, I'd be going through train stations and hey, Ben Roarty, and I was like, someone knows my name.
Yeah.
And it was the supporters who are usually from the Bulldogs and teams like that. And it was just, I was never into the notoriety of being a big head like that, but it was nice.
Yeah.
To certainly have, someone know your name for a trade that you do. And it was a bit of a pleasure, but I still went back that year. I remember I finished the year with Storm, and we had our Mad Monday, and the next week the Bulldogs played. Can't remember that, and they lost. So I went to Bulldogs Mad Monday as well. So because I was still friends with them all. I was sitting in East Hills pub with all the Canterbury players, and then Terry Lamb or someone gave me a Bulldog shirt and it said Bulldog Minor Premier or whatever it was. And Fox Sports come in with the camera. And I was sitting there with all the Canterbury boys with my hands around and drinking like that. And then my phone went off the hook. All the boys ringing me, what are you doing on Mad Monday with Canterbury? And I'm like, I don't know, just come back to Sydney and drink with me mates. So that was pretty funny.
Enough. So moving on to 99. So I think Dubs and I both want to really talk more about the finals and obviously the grand final. But so 98, you were a regular starter. 99, we signed Stephen Kearney. Rodney Howe comes back from his drug suspension.
Yeah.
You then play more of a role coming off the bench, being an impact player. How did you find that change of sort of, being a starter to more of that, coming off the bench?
Yeah, my game wasn't typically a explosive ball runner. I ended up scoring a few tries, but I wasn't one to make line breaks and bust through the line. And so for me, I was the same pace the whole way. But Chris said, just come off the bench, play your 15, 20 minutes first half, 15, 20 minutes second half. He goes, don't miss a fucking tackle. Don't miss any tackles. And when that's in your head, that's what you try and do. And certainly I did miss tackles, but you're out there, no tackles, and run the ball and just hang on to it. Quick play the balls. And that was the role I was given at that point in time. You know, I'd come down from Sydney as a lock forward, and then, you know, they had Tarawa Nikau there as lock. So I moved to second row, front row. I got a bit bigger and just stayed there the whole time. And I was quite happy there. We used to have so much fun on the bench. You look at that bench, it was myself, Russell Bowden, Danny Williams, and Matty Rua. And it was one of the first clubs in the world that had 4 biggish forwards on the bench.
Yep.
And, you know, Lazo might need a rest, or Howie or Kearns, you know, I used to run on, and used to use a swinging arm a little bit of a niggle. Danny Williams would come on the same. Rusky wasn't like that, but Paul Marquette or Matt Rule, they were big hitters. So the other teams, they go, oh, wait for 20 minutes till we're tired. Then you're going to get Roarty, Williams, and Matty Rule on the. And Rusky was a big hitter, not a dirty player.
Yeah.
Those blokes are going to come on and bash the shit out of us when they come on, and they knew that.
Yeah.
So there was no weaknesses when our bench come on. We were coming on, and we were coming on to hurt you, and we were coming on to hurt you, and there was no shortcuts.
And did you ever line anyone up? You ever line up an opposition player and target take someone out, like a playmaker or a key player from the opposition?
Oh, I remember when I went to Penrith, I tried to line up Rodney Howe one day, and I ran out of the line, and I got smashed straight on my ass. He was a great friend of mine, still is, and I remember that's one of the times that we put on my backside. Not really. I just did my job, and, you know, going for a big hit and running out of the line, you're going to let the team down a little bit. So, you know, I wasn't a huge hitter, but I was just, you know, trying to make myself efficient with the tackles. But that was my role. I moved into that bench role, which sort of stuck with me the rest of my career, which was fine. You know, we had fun on that bench. You know, Rusty and I had fun in everything we do, and we'd have a little gamble on who's going to get on first in the game. It'd be $50 if you get on or I get on first. It'll be like, oh, and the coach would come around and go, pick Rusty. And Rusty would go, and I'd go, told you, and I'd win $50. Or if I come on first, and we had little bets on there. It was called bench Lotto, and we used to draw numbers out of a hat. You can say these 20 years later because it's pretty funny, but we used to draw numbers out of a hat. If your number came up that you went on, you got paid the money by the other players. So. But I enjoyed the role off the bench, you know, and didn't make much difference.
And I should mention too that, like, back then there was unlimited interchange, not like today. So, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was basically you're on for 10 minutes, you'd flog yourself, and then you're back on the bench. So you were probably playing as many minutes as the starters.
A lot of times I did play as many minutes. I enjoyed the football back in the 90s where you had the limited interchanges, like 4 interchanges, you went off, you went on. I enjoyed that. I was a long distance. I could hold that tempo for a whole period of time. I wasn't the world's fittest person, but I liked that war of attrition and could stay there the whole game. I was quite happy to play the whole game in my younger years at Canterbury. And then they changed the rules, so we had to adapt to it. And then you were just like, people were fighting for the ball a bit more because you're all sort of a bit fresher. And before it'd be look around sideways and, you know, your run. But when it got to unlimited, it was like pushing each other out of the road to have your run before the coach said, Roarts, come on, have another rest. And you're like, I only had 2 quick runs and 3 tackles, but you've done your job as a team. So that's how we
Just before Michael presses on towards the 99 finals, I'm just curious because you said when you first got there, you were feeling a bit out of shape. You weren't match conditioned as fit as you'd like to be. You had a bit of an unusual role because on the one hand, you got to be a big forward. You got to match it with the other massive props and second rowers. And at the same time, you did. I know you say you're not a big runner, but you actually, looking back at the way you played, you did run a lot. And
I'd probably talk myself down a little bit in my role. I did reasonably well there. I did well. I like to get a quick play the ball. I made some good line breaks. But what happened, I come to Storm, I was probably 101 kilo, which included puppy fat as a 18, 19, 20-year-old has. I had that puppy fat. And then I changed that fat into muscle and filled up around the top and stayed at 100 kilos. 99.8 or 100 kilos was my great playing weight. And then I could be a bit more agile. And I used to step a little bit sideways and try and pass the ball a little bit now and again until one went wrong. The coach would say, just hold the fucking ball. Don't pass it. Just hold the ball. So that's about it. You know, I had to play front row as well, replace Lazo and Howie and Kearns. So I had to make sure I was heavy enough for that. But I wanted to stay light enough to play second row or lock. I suppose I always wanted to go back to lock forward. But then you had Kearney there and, Nikau there and had to wait till he went. And But it was good fun.
Yeah. So onto the final series. So, you know, we finished third. We then played St. George at home and we got absolutely smashed. Tell us a bit about how that loss affected the playing group. Were you guys shattered? Obviously, you bounced back and we went on to win the premiership, but did a lot of people think, did a lot of the players think like, that's it for us? Like,
yeah, if my memory serves you correct, I think St George had beaten us once or twice that year as well.
Yeah, you're right.
You have to look back to the records at least once. So they had a bit of a wood over us. And we come into the game confident, home game, coming into it confident, and then just one thing after the other went wrong, and we were like, what's going on here? And then I think the point came where we were trying our best and everything was going pear-shaped. When you sometimes try too hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened. And we were missing uncharacteristic tackles and players playing out of their unusual roles. And they got on a roll and they were just phenomenal. They played the best footy they could ever play. They played their grand final that day. They played their grand final that day. And we played our worst trial match that day. So there was two big, they weren't going to ever play any better.
Yeah.
And we couldn't play any worse. So, fast forward to, 3 or 4 weeks later, we were going to have to play up here, but they couldn't play any better. Yeah. So in our minds, we went back to training, and you've got the positive people, as I keep alluding to, even little cheeky Kamali and run around, we're right, come on, let's do this. And no one ever gave up hope. No one ever gave up hope. That game, it's still perplexed today what happened,
Yeah.
I don't know, everything they did was just like gold, and everything we did was the opposite. So we weren't disillusioned to training. We went back and trained just as hard, just as normal. Chris Anderson, a wise man, and he was just, forget about it. Just forget about it. Let's start the semis again next week. Let's start again. You come third, you're a good footy team, and that's what you're going to do. So.
Yep. And the next week, we beat Canterbury by 2 points. Matt Guy scored a runaway try with about 10 minutes to go. Tell us about how it felt, beating Canterbury. Did that win was that a bit more special for you?
Yeah, certainly special. I remember, Ricky Stewart kicked the ball across the field, as we all know.
Yep.
And Matty Guy was playing 5'8" that game, and he'd come from the wing, and he'd moved into 5'8". I think that was his first game at 5'8", or very small amount of time at 5'8". And he come in and grabbed the ball, and Matty's as strong he's as skinny and as hairy as you'll ever see a human being. He's built like that, and he's as hairy as you ever see a man, but he's as strong as any man. So, and fast. So when he got in that clear, there was no one on the field who was going to catch it. Just Matty's in the clear, and I remember saying, he's going to score. He's going to score. And then we finished the game, and then to win that versus the old club who didn't snub you, but didn't give me opportunity for first grade after getting reserve grade player of the year there, and they never gave me a first grade game the year later. I was like,
oh wow,
bad luck, stick it up them. And there was no hard feelings for even though I was at their Mad Monday the year before. There was no hard feelings for him. And Matty Guy, when he scored that try, and that was the catalyst for us coming back in the grand final. We were down versus Canterbury. I can't remember the score. Might have been 18-4, 18-8. We were down by 8 or 10 points in that particular game. And that was a catalyst for obviously the next week and the week after. So that gave us that momentum. So it was a brilliant game. That was a brilliant game of football at the footy stadium as well, and amazing.
Yeah. Well, fast forward. Actually, one other thing I want to ask about, this was a 12-year-old, me as a 12-year-old thinking, I always thought Scott Hill, don't get me wrong, love him, fantastic player, but him getting injured was kind of a blessing in disguise because we got Craig Smith back and his kicking was phenomenal back then. Now, they're all kicking 80% nowadays, but back then, Matt Guy was our kicker and, love Matt Guy.
68%, 62%.
Yeah, something like that. And a lot of those key kicks in the, all the semis, they were from not super difficult, but relatively difficult position. Do you sort of think the same way that?
Yeah, we couldn't think like that as obviously I see what you're saying about Scotty, and Scotty's a fantastic player, and he's the same as Robbie Kearns, two of the unluckiest players who represent New South Wales, Australia, and didn't play in an NRL grand final. These two were, sorely missed by it. Matty Guy, Scotty Hill's a very good individual player, and we went to him a lot of times, he'd throw his dummy and then push over. So that was the way he could have been. The games would have changed, maybe not pass the ball out and scored on the wing. Scotty probably would have scored a try or two for us, and that's the only way we think. But as you said, it could have been a blessing in disguise. Like Matty Guy had that kick in the grand final in front of the post, and I still thought he was going to miss the fucking thing. I was in there like, he still might miss. It's Matty Guy, a goal kicker, and I love him to death. But you know, anyone could kick 68%, can't they? Anyone could. I could
Yeah. You get anything under the post is a gimme. So
anything under the post, except if Matty Guy is kicking. And so that change was probably lucky for the team dynamics. As you probably know, Ben Anderson played in the first 5'8", Chris's son. And then when he got dropped, there's controversy whether the club pushed him out or Chris Anderson made him, like dropped him, or Chris Johns, John Rebo jumped in. I don't know the controversy over it. But obviously Matty Guy moved into 5'8". Poor old Benny's still a great friend of mine to this day, and I feel sorry that he didn't get the opportunity to play, you know, the following weeks. But as it goes, history's there now that, you know, it was a master move, putting Matt Guy from the wing into 5'8", scoring a try versus Canterbury, and then Smithy coming in on the wing, who played most of the season in the Queensland competition. So it's a master coaching move by whoever did it. So.
And yeah, you're right. Like having Scott Hill would definitely given us probably a bit more potency in attack. So we got over Parramatta. Let's move on to the grand final. What was it like? Obviously, it was 109,000 that day. What was it like running out onto the grounds, you know, national anthem playing, all that stuff? How was that experience?
Yeah, running onto the field was great. I started going with a girlfriend in those days. You read in the media, she was a cheerleader from the Storm.
Yep.
So halfway through the season, we've been going out for a few months. And then the club got wind of it. The cheerleading business who run that business said to the girls, can't fraternise with the players. And she got sacked. So there was an article in the Herald Sun in Melbourne.
I do remember that, actually. Yeah. But can I just interrupt and say she's now your wife, is that
She's
correct?
She's my wife, and she's been a successful businesswoman herself, owned a cheerleading studio for 12 years. Mother of two beautiful kids, and she's out working now while I'm home chatting to you guys and having a beer. So the best wife you could imagine. So that was early in the year. She'd been sacked from the club and then stuck by us, you know, stuck together as a player, and she travelled up to Sydney for that game. So running onto the field, seeing all the girlfriends and wives sitting on the right-hand side was truly amazing. Knowing my dad was across the other side, my mum and grandma always stayed home. They didn't come to the games, and Dad was over there with 14 other people that I got tickets for. And the Storm were really good because they'd even made us pay for the tickets that we got because we won the grand final. They didn't deduct any money out of our thing. So running onto the field, I'd never seen or heard anything like 107 or 109,000 people. And Hugh Jackman was there, who's a superstar singing. It went really, really quickly. We ran onto the field and the game just started. And I was sitting on the bench as usual and just looking around, and it was just, I can't describe it. Like anywhere in the world with 100,000 people there, it was just, you know, booing you. Half the people hated Melbourne. They were all booing us. But then the other half hated St. George. So they were cheering for us, even though the Storm had like probably maybe 10% of the crowd, maybe less. Yeah. But they were on our side. So that was a great feeling.
Yeah. And tell us a bit about your try. So you scored just before, I was watching it actually before the interview. You scored around the 58th minute. You scored, so you got us to 18-12. When you scored, you didn't really celebrate overly. You sort of clapped your hands, and it looked like it was more like, all right, boys, let's keep going. So tell us a bit about the try.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Going back the week before to Parramatta, obviously Canterbury week before, we were down by 18-8, 18-4. Parramatta the week later, we were down 16-2, 16-4, 18-4, something like that. We were down versus Parramatta. So coming into the grand final, we got to half time and we were down 14-4 or something like that at half time or whatever. And the boys are like, this is the same as last week. It's the same as the week before. And Chris Anderson said, just go out there and back your own ability. Those were the words that I remember saying, back your own ability. And Brett Kamali said, let's just have some fun. You know, who's going to say, what type of person would say, have fun? You're getting beat by 10 points or in a grand final. Kamali said, let's just have fun. And Chris Anderson said, back your own ability. So Robbie Ross or Steve Kearney made a little break at the start of the second half, a little flick past the right. And the momentum started. Yeah. And we got on a roll. And I think Tony Martin had scored as well. And I was lucky enough. Denny Williams, a great friend of mine, we had a falling out there a few years back, a bit early. We had a bit of a falling out, but we were great mates at that particular time. We played tennis together and we were always in each other's hand. And he looked at me and said, I'll run you a decoy. I'll run you a block. Normally you tell someone, you say, you run me a block. And, he said, I'll run you a decoy. And who would say that? He ran the decoy and 2 or 3 players went into him. I got the ball. I just sort of, I have a joke with Colin Ward now. He's a St. George player. I said, I pushed you off, and Colin wasn't even near it. But you can see there, there was a big gap there that, he could have bit the QE2 through the big ship. And I ran through, and I knew there was a job to be done. Wasn't a big try celebrator. It's not Aussie rules where they kick a goal and everybody's like hugging and kissing. It was like, I scored the try, throw the ball to the guy, kick the goal, let's keep going. Yep. That's how our mentality was. We had a job to do that second half as a steamroll St. George. So,
yep. There's a couple of key flashpoints in that second half, particularly, because obviously they were all over us in the first half. I mean, you must have felt that Blacklock runaway try. You must have thought, well, this is a shocker.
Let me tell you one thing about the Blacklock try. When you get a chance, watch that in slow motion, right? Today, that try would have been disallowed by the bunker because as he kicked the ball, Kamali and Robbie Ross were coming around, yeah?
Yeah.
Trent Barrett ran back towards Blacklock and impeded. This is like controversy, and I've watched it. I haven't said it. I said it early this year on a website, on a forum, and a couple of people agreed with me. So if you get a chance, I know you love the Storm, I know you want to do it, sit down and watch it frame by frame by frame, and Robbie Ross is impeded by Trent Barrett to have a fair shot at Nathan Blacklock, and that's why he ran straight through the gap, because we couldn't get to tackle him. So I know out of the history, many games have been decided by probably incorrect calls, but this day and age, that would not have been a try. So they all whinge about Tony Martin's beautiful pass off Matt Guy, which was a perfect pass. They call it the forward pass, as you probably know. But it was
perfectly flat, I reckon. Perfectly
but I mean,
flat.
It's the angle. Like when you're in that sort of, you're watching on TV and that sort of top right-hand corner, it always seems forward, but
yes, it does.
For me, it's the angle of the camera.
Yeah, it was. So that was it. That was the controversy around that one. The Trent Barrett one was the same, I think, in hindsight, watching it years later. I said, that's a Shepherd, and I've watched it. But the boys just stuck together that second half. And like you said, the pivotal thing, Nick Howe came out and he was fired up. You could see his mullet going, and he was trying to punch on with Craig Smith, who was an international. They played together. And once we saw Nick Howe get a bit angry and with his big eyes open up like that and his mullet flying around, he hadn't given up. Given up. And the boys just plug in there, and the defence of some of the guys, Matty Rua, Russell Bowden come off the bench. Denny Williams knocked that ball out of Wishart's arm off the kickoff. Just little things like that. The pivotal things, like you said, Dubs.
I think it was, Craig Smith crashes into Mundine on the line, knocks him just off balance slightly, drops a gimme try. So
the St. George supporters never forgive him about that. One day in a Zoo magazine about 15 years ago, I said, how'd that grand final go? I go, one thing, Mundine just should have passed that ball. But
the best thing is the shot of his face afterwards, because he ran his mouth all the time. He loved the talk. And then, because I think Ray Warren's calling it, and Peter Sterling's just gone, I think he's dropped it. And just Mundine's face though.
Yeah, once that camera came in and it was evident, it was like, but that's rugby league, we dropped earlier balls, and balls will always be dropped. And
even the legend Lazarus had a couple of key moment mistakes there, which we obviously forgive, knowing that he's legend that he is. But
when I was talking a moment ago, I wasn't going to say that. I'm going to point that out. Like Lazarus did his bit, but like we all did at certain times throughout the year. It doesn't matter, grand final, any game. We all had a couple of drops, and the man who's won 5 premierships, 3 different clubs, probably never dropped the ball 2 times in his life, and he dropped them 2 times that game. And we stuck up for him. We backed him up.
In the end, we only true fans who've gone through the game again actually remember that. Most people just forget and remember
when you watch the replay.
Which is what we're getting forward to. Before we get to that final incredible moment which decided the game, just a word on Brett Kamali, because he was a magician with his kicking game, with his short kicking game particularly, and it wasn't just the tries that we scored, but probably in that last 20 minutes or so of the game, he absolutely had the ball on a string. What are your memories of him in that game and just watching the way he played? And in general, like when he had the ball, did you just get that sense he could do anything with it?
Yeah, he was another one. He's a little man with a big voice. Sounded like a jockey, really, like Billy Slater. He had a little voice, but it stood out. And his job, at training, you push him around and he's only a little fella. Get out of the road, you little, that's how he was. And he'd have a laugh with you. But next minute when he had those eyes as well and started to get serious, and he'd boss Lazarus around, Howie, Kearnsey, me, he'd just tell you what to do, and you just listened. And that's why he was a brilliant player. And Chris Anderson had a flat style of play. So these day and age now, the players, three decoys run it through and pass it back 10, 15 metres. Kamali had you running at the line. He'd pass one or two of you the ball and you might get smashed, or he might go through a gap, or he'd throw a dummy and go himself. So he was a magician like that. He practiced his kicking before training, during training, after training. So we expected him to be a good kicker. If he kicked one that went out, it was, why'd you do that? I think he might have kicked one out in the full during that grand final, actually. That's uncharacteristic of him. He wouldn't have done that in the whole year. So we expected a lot out of him. He was a small man with a big heart and a great leader on the field. He could have been our captain that day. Just unfortunately for him, we had a bloke called Glenn Lazarus there. So.
Yeah.
So last 5 minutes, or coming up to the last 5 minutes of the game, we're on attack. We've been on attack. Clearly, St. George have gone into a defensive mode. They're protecting a 4-point lead. It wasn't necessarily the last roll of the dice, but I'm going to set the scene. Then I want you to talk us through exactly what you remember. So 5th tackle, ball comes out from dummy half to Kamali. He shapes to kick. He's roughly midfield, about probably 10, 15 metres out. Goes what is an absolutely beautiful crossfield kick towards the in-goal area. Where were you standing? What are your memories of it?
Wow, what a good question. You've just put that to a T. That's very good, very good media, mate. Well done. You said it. I could have just agreed with you and give you a clap there, and that was great. Kamali, as I said, he doesn't do bad kicks. He does one a year, and it was in the grand final, went out in the full. I knew he was going to put it on the line or closer. It was an easy kick for him. For me or you or someone might have come off the side of the foot. I expect him to do a good kick every time. That's what we expect. We expect that. It's not luck. It's practice. Going out to Smithy. Smithy's great under a high ball. I knew that. Smithy, I played with him at Canterbury for 2 years before, plus half the year at Storm there. I knew he's a good catcher of the ball. So it's not rocket science. It wasn't a fluke. It's stuff we practiced. And we also decided to kick the Ainscoe side because he wasn't the better catcher of the two. So it was training run for us. It was nothing flashy. The fact that he kicked it over the top and Smithy caught the ball. And then obviously we move into Ainscoe hit him around the chops. So it's not, once again, a big deal. There's no other reason. There was nothing he could have done other than give the penalty try. And I remember standing reasonably close to Billy Harrigan, who I've become mates with since rugby league, a great person. And Billy's sitting there, and we're going penalty try, and he's move away. And I remember he had his hand on his when he so it's a penalty try. I heard him say that out his mouth before it come up on the screen. So I knew we'd won that game, or we had the try and then the kick into the post. And when you're playing in the heat of the moment, you're thinking penalty try, 8-point try, and you don't, the enormity of it doesn't go through your head. Penalty try and 8-point try are slightly different, as you probably know. The penalty try is if you don't ground it, you get given a try under the goalpost and you have a kick there. But an 8-point try, if you score the try, get your 4 points, and someone knees you in the back or kicks you in the head, you get an extra shot at goal. So you got two goal kicks. So we knew it was a try. Billy went, so penalty try, like in his ear. And when I heard that, I started grabbing the boys. I don't know how many of them heard that. And I was like, yes. And they go, oh, wait. We won. We got it. And then it came over the screen. And we're worried about Smithy as well. Smithy's sitting there and you see his fingers bend up, and he was severely knocked out and unconscious. So I'd been living with him for a fair while. So really worried about me mate, which no one really speaks about, do they? It just says Smithy got knocked out and as a penalty try moved on. He was severely knocked out. He could have had a broken neck.
It was a big hit.
It was a big hit.
Solid hit.
That was disgusting.
Other people blame Ainscoe for that. But what was he to do? I would have done the same thing. Try and knock the ball out, knock the head off. If you grabbed the guy in the air, it would have been a penalty. So he did what he did. I couldn't blame Ainscoe for losing in that game. So when I heard him do that,
the kick was always going to be a try. The only thing that could have gone wrong was if Smith dropped it. But Ainscoe, he's got the decision to make. Either he impedes or he lets him score. So
and as I said, mate, I reiterate, we trained for that. We knew it was going to happen, and there's no variables in it. Put a good kick in, jump up over the top of Ainscoe, catch it and score. Yeah. So we did that. I was on the field, and then I think I'd replaced Lazarus the last couple of minutes, and Lazo had gone off, and I was lucky I was on there. I was on there for that kick, and I was on there for that celebration at the end. Yeah. What I call that genuine emotion. The picture of Lazarus in the background now, and I think that's Howie over there near his right arm, and I don't know who's at the trophy. Denny Williams, number 15 there. Nick out there. I like how that. And that emotion, and just, you know, like, yeah, I've won grand finals with other clubs too, and local football in the bush, and it's the same emotion whether you win under 10s grand final or NRL grand final. You can't get any better than being the best at your particular sport. So one funny thing, my dad was there, as I said, and he went for a piss halfway through the game, and about the 54th or 58th minute.
Yep.
Coincides, as we spoke earlier, when I scored that try.
Wow.
And he was in the toilet, and everybody started going, "Roarty, Sky, Roarty," and my dad's going, "What's going on? I'm his dad. I'm just having a piss." And they just said, he just scored a try, and he obviously missed it. And he said people in the toilet hugged him, and they were lifting him up and down like in the dunny. So he never even seen it. He probably had to watch a replay. But he missed the try, so that was funny.
Yeah, you just mentioned Bill Harrigan, like that brings back a lot of memories. I still remember, like, I loved him as a ref. I think he was a good ref, but he just had this swagger about him. You look at a lot of the refs these days, they look a little bit like nerds, but he was just this kind of cool kind of character. So I thought he was a fantastic referee.
Come across like that.
Yeah.
There's a referee years ago called Greg Hartley, and he used to strut around.
Yes.
You know,
70s,
time. You know, he'd strut around and do it. And the referees these days are very similar. But Billy, as you know, was in the police force very high up, so he respected the criminals he worked with, and he demanded that. And I suppose he treated us like criminals. I'm the boss. You listen to me, or you getting off. And we knew that, so he was good.
So we want to quickly ask you about the celebrations for the Premiership. Obviously, this year, don't know if you've been following a lot of the players with social media. Their celebrations have been sort of up on the internet. The question is, who is the best on ground for the post Premiership celebrations, in your opinion? Was it yourself?
I didn't miss out on those things, mate. I never missed out on the celebration. You know, we went hard for a week or so. But, you know, we all kept together. We had a party after the grand final. We flew back on the aeroplane. They chartered an aeroplane for us. Yep. We flew back it was the only ever time I've only got to sit down in first class on the way back, or business. It was on the way back. We sat in the front, and that was phenomenal. And just to be on the bus. And then the best part about the whole thing, other than winning, was coming through Melbourne Airport. I remember coming off the aeroplane, and it seemed like thousands of people. It seemed like thousands. It might have been hundreds. At the terminal, inside the terminal, as we come off the aeroplane. And I got goosebumps thinking about it now. And we walked off, and I was behind Lazarus, and he probably had the trophy. And that feeling of walking all the way through the terminal, out, get your bags, and then go out to the team bus, and they were pushing on the bus and cheering us. And I remember sitting on that bus, and I was half pissed by then, and looking out the window and just seeing there was hundreds of people there, and I was sitting beside my wife Sonia, and she's holding my hand, and I remember Marcus sitting behind me, and he was saying some stuff, and to this day he still doesn't speak the clearest English I've ever heard in my life, and I just seen his big white eyes and his white teeth, and he didn't stop smiling. He's sitting just behind me, and that's what I remember of that bus trip, just how his smile was captivating, and it was beautiful sitting next to Marcus, who'd come from, you know, the highlands of New Guinea, and you know, I come from Liverpool in Sydney basically. And I just remember that. And then we got back to the ground and had a party on the Gosh's paddock. And then we went in, and then we just continued on from there, just having bits and pieces for the week. And the photos we've got with the trophies and the NRL trophy, we've all got cigars in our mouth, which seems to be the way to go. And pictures with Molly Meldrum. And it was great. And it was great. And we partied like that anyway, usually during the year. So some of us did. We partied a couple of days a week through the year, and we had some fun.
Yeah, sounds good. So moving on to 2000 season. So the one thing I wanted to basically just talk about that season is the death of Michael Moore. Now, as a kid at the time, you hear, I think it was general manager or some manager.
Football manager the players.
Manager. I thought, didn't really think too much of it, but after reading a book about, it's called Stormcloud. I've got it here actually. Oh, you can't really get it. But sorry, Paul Kennedy. It's about Paul Kennedy. It's about it's about mainly about the salary cap scandal, but it paints the whole picture back from '98 all the way through. Your name's in it actually as well. There's a little bit about you, but anyway, he talks about Michael Moore's death and just the impact it had on the team. So describe like how that actually affected the team, being being, around the team and there at the time.
Yeah. So Mick was the person who met you at the airport. When you flew into Melbourne, you knew nobody. Mick picked you up at the airport. So you seen his big face, and he sounded like a cowboy from the bush in Queensland. He's like, "G'day, boys. Here you go. My name's Mick. What are you up to? Come on, let's go for a ride. Jump in. Woo!" And that's how he was. That was how every minute of his life lived.
Yeah.
And, he was very successful building the club up. Mick was the man. He had a notepad about that thick. And he'd open it up and writes it in it, and then next page. And half the stuff got done and half didn't. You could always fix it with a credit card. Oh, shit, I forgot to book hotels. Okay, we need 25 guys in a hotel room for tonight. Boom. And it was just, that's how the Storm was started. The credit cards and just Chris Johns and John Rebo, they were there. And they'd never owned a club or run a club before. They'd been involved, but the pressure. So Mick was just a do-it man. Ring it, fix it. Start of 2000, I was out with a groin injury. I'd had some surgery after the grand final. So I missed the trip to New Zealand. I woke up about 7 o'clock in the morning, I heard the news. I said, there's been a sporting official, and that's a player from a sporting team has died in New Zealand. Didn't mean much to me. I heard it on the Channel 7 News or whatever. And then I heard a player involved in a Melbourne Storm player or official's been killed. I'm like, fucking hell. So I start getting the phone and I ring Mick. Ring. I would have rang him 20 times. And then I heard the last new bit of news I heard was the sporting official has been killed. So there's only 4 there, I think. Rebo, Johns, Mick Moore, Greg Brendel and Chris Anderson. 1 out of 5. I'm still ringing Mick. What's happened to Chris Anderson, Rebo, Johns? What's happened to them? I didn't, in my head, think it could be Mick. Then I got a phone call a little bit later and they told us Mick had passed away. And Mick sits here at sits at my table. That's a photo you can see. That was after the grand final. There's not very many times you're going to see VB stubbies on the stadium. Mick come onto the field and he says, "Right, yeah." That's how he used to speak. And he gave me a stubby of VB and someone said, "You can't drink them off." He says, "Who's going to fucking stop us?" And we drank VB stubbies on Stadium Australia. Normally you have Gatorade, or if you're going to have beer, you have cans, but we had glass bottles in the middle of that, and that was what Mick was going to do. And then obviously his funeral's in Queensland a week later or like that. But, he'd had an accident over there where he jumped in the afternoon, as far as I'm aware, and I don't want to speak out of school. In the afternoon, they were mucking around on the wharf, and I don't want to talk too much out of school. Then he went back at night time and think that the tide had changed a little bit and the dark clouds, and I don't want to elaborate too much, but he had an accident.
Yep.
And then passed away over there, and it broke our hearts. It broke our hearts. He was the heart and soul. He was the Kamali of the team. He was the management, the part of the management team. You'd ring him for anything, anytime, 24/7, and you never forget that fella. And this year we had a 20-year reunion from when he passed away, and I got that photo there, screen printed onto a T-shirt, and I walked into the club, and we had a memorial for him this year, and we were going to fly to New Zealand in April for the Warriors game, and we're going to have a Storm reunion over there for that game. So we missed out on that this year. So we had his funeral up in Queensland. We were playing a couple of days later. It was midweek, Tuesday, Wednesday. We were playing on Friday against Newcastle. And I said to the coach, I said, "Can we have a drink?" And the coach said, "Just do whatever you want to do." So I know half of us got blind drunk, and football was the last thing on our thing. And we at his wake, we drunk as much as we could and flew down at Newcastle and got flogged. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't a fairy tale. We were hungover. We didn't care about footy that day. So but he lives on through his beautiful partner Tracy. His beautiful kids. They've grown up, and we're friends with them as well. And that's an great accident, and that's life. Yeah.
And it's really great that the club still remembers him and commemorates him. I think, again, reading the book sort of described him as that key middleman between the players and the management. He was the one who could keep the peace and really, keep everyone happy. So,
hit the nail on the head there,
Anyway, moving on to 2001. We're doing all the, actually, Ben, can I just turn the light on? The light's starting to...
It's starting to fade into the background, Paul, man.
Into the background. Does that help me a bit?
A little bit better. You might have to turn the green screen off if...
Anyway, yeah, 2001. So, yeah, that was the year Chris Anderson. He walked away. If my sources are correct. Yeah, tell us a bit about that. Obviously, he's the one who helped you get down to Melbourne. Again, based off this book, it talked about, I think he was pretty upset that the club couldn't re-sign Kamali, and also the stuff that went down with his son, as you talked about earlier. What are your memories of Chris Anderson's departure?
Yeah, he was the other one. He's an old-fashioned coach. You know, the old-fashioned train hard, stick together, you know, one in, all in for a punch-up, that old-fashioned stuff, and that worked for us down there. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. You know, get the ball, run hard, get tackle, play the ball, pass it to your mate, and go through. And Chris would get in there, and, you know, when he got serious, he'd have a yell at us. But he loved a lot of golf, and he brought the players together, and we used to go and play golf sometimes 4 days a week. You know, you finish training, go, that'll do, boys. Me and Roarts have got to get on the golf course in 42 minutes. Righto, have a shower. Yeah. And that's how he was. That's how he was the whole 3.5 years or 3 years whenever he went there. And very sad to see him go. Chris is still a family friend to myself. A few times over the last few years, I've been up in Cronulla, and I might have not been able to get a taxi, or not. I've lost my wallet or my phone and can't get home anywhere. No hotel booked. I go knock on the Anderson house at the beach at Cronulla there, and his wife will come in at 2 in the morning. Oh, Roarts, hello, go and jump on the couch. And that's, you know, not many people, I haven't changed one bit in 20 years either, but not many people have that relationship with a coach after he left the club 20 years later. It's just, I love the guy. I loved his wife. I loved his kids. And for him to go was, you know, demoralising for the club. And then Mark Murray took over. And once again, I won't talk too much out of school, but a lot of the players didn't like Mark Murray. He was like, he'd treat the kids like, he'd treat the players like kids, ex-school teacher. And he'd stand up there and he'd go, you know, he'd be talking and someone would, excuse me, who's talking up the back? Like, that's what a school teacher would say, where Chris Anderson going, hey, shut up, dickhead, or piss off. Where Mark, excuse me, I'll have to talk to you after training if you're up the back talking. And we'd be like, we're 25, 28, 30 years of age, and someone talking to us like school kids, and we'd be like, don't talk to us like school kids, we're men. You talk to men like men. And he lost that respect with the players in that, you know, that regard. And some of the players, you know, said he didn't teach us that much, and we didn't evolve much as a club. So he did teach me how to dry in between my toes with a sock. That's what I tell people after a shower. That's about all I learned. Get your sock and put it in between your toes to dry it. That's about all he taught me. So the boys all have
I'm glad you mentioned showers. I was meant to bring this up a bit earlier. So this is yeah, here we go. So I found this. This is a Russell Bowden quote about. Well, I won't say it. I'll let you tell us what it is. It's Rusty Bowden was talking about an initiation you had for the new players coming in.
He can talk about that one. He can talk about that. I've seen, over the years in rugby league, I've seen people who don't do certain things have their shoes urinated on. And I played for about 5 clubs, so I can't say where it happened. Yeah. You know, jump in a shower and someone would fill up your shoe with some urine or something around the clubs, or someone would pee on somebody's leg. I don't want to go too X-rated and go viral, but the whole lot of clubs I played in around the world, this would happen sometimes to some of the younger players. The one thing I can tell you, Russ and I used to do in the shower, and it's probably a bit off topic what he said, was we would wait for the coach to finish talking, whether we won or lost, and we'd be sitting there like, we tried our best, and we weren't going home to cry. We played our best, and we weren't one to sit there and cry into our boots. We'd like, as soon as the coach finished, we'd grab a 6-pack of beer, 2 chairs, and we'd go into the shower, and we'd sit with the water coming down the back of our heads, and we'd sit there until we drank 6 beers, 3 beers each. And a lot of times, the Melbourne Storm number one sponsor, number one fan, Molly Meldrum, happened to come in, and Molly would sit there, or just sat there chatting to us while we're sitting there stark naked under the shower for half an hour drinking beers, and Molly would be having the time of his life, just chatting away to Rusty and Roarts in the shower. It's a little bit different than Russell's story, but you know, we were famous for that. We'd be stood soon as the game had finished, get our clothes off and run in the shower and start drinking our VB stubbies in the shower, win, lose or draw, and you know, we had fun winning and we had fun losing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, well, that's pretty much it's along the lines of what Rusty said there.
Yeah.
anyway, so you left the club at the end of 2001. You went to Penrith. As I said, it was mentioned in the book. I think it was a John Rebo quote. I won't bring out the book and quote it, but he talked a bit about they were having salary cap issues and they wanted to keep you, but they couldn't quite fit you into cap. Is that sort of how the story went down?
Pretty close. What happened? I think they just cut my contract with 20 or 30 grand, but I was still there, and they offered me a 3-year contract. John Rebo and Mark Murray offered me a 3-year contract up there. But Penrith to give me a bit extra upgrade, probably another 70 grand.
Yep.
60 or 70 grand for 2-year contract. And I was like, I'm a businessman as well. Rugby league's a fickle sport. You have one bad year or 6 months, you're going to get pissed off anyway. I didn't like Mark Murray as a coach. Yep. Royce Simmons was coaching up in Penrith. So I'd signed up there, got a good contract for 2 years and left. Very sad to leave Melbourne. I love the place. I've come back and I still live here now. I love the boys. I love the culture. Didn't like Mark Murray. Couldn't see me. As I said, they offered me a 3-year contract. Could have been a 7-year player and then after that another 2 or 3 and a 10-year player. Who knows? Yep. But I just took the contract, went up to Penrith. Royce Simmons actually got sacked before I got there and John Lang took over as coach.
Yep.
So I moved up there and
yeah, so I was going to say, you left Penrith halfway through the 2003 season. Do you sometimes think what could have been if you stayed on? As we know, they won that championship. But
we'll just touch on Penrith a little bit. I went up there and they had a weights program and I got massive. I got to 105 kilos. And Penrith never ran in the off-season much. And coming from someone who'd been flogged in Melbourne, I'm like, we're not running and we're just doing weights. We're all turning into monsters. Fast forward the next year, 2003, they were on the same training regime. And who won the Premiership? Penrith. Halfway through the season, my contract was due to expire. Some up and coming young players were getting some good money and they deserved an upgrade in their pay. I was reading a big league magazine. I rang up my manager on the way to a game versus the Cowboys. And I said, ring these guys in England. They're looking for a second rower in Huddersfield. Straightforward. He rang them up. Once again, the same as when I left, left Sydney for the pro. Huddersfield at Giants over there said, we need you here, but you've got to be here next Tuesday to take up your 2.5-year contract. So I walked into John Lang, seen him, and Richardson, whatever his name, Shane Richardson. Yep. And I said, mate, I need a release. I've just signed a good contract in England for 2.5 years, pending a release. And they said, we don't want to see you to go. We're coming second or third on the ladder. There's a premiership here. And I said, well, I'm a businessman. It's a business decision, rugby league, and there's this and that. Went to England, flew back for my Bucks party, had 60 guys at Nelson Bay in Sydney the night of the grand final. And I sat in front of the TV at a local pub there. And when they won, we won. I cried my eyes out in front of the pub. So
nice.
Happiness and sadness.
And
still, yeah.
I was just going to say, who are you supporting? There's only one answer here. 2 weeks ago in the grand final.
Yeah, I was supporting the Storm. I know the boys. I know the players. Penrith were great to me. I have no hard feelings against Penrith, but they gave me my start down here, and they keep me together as a Melbourne Old Boys. We're such a tight team. Once you leave the Storm as a player, you become a Melbourne Old Boy, and you stick together like brothers forever. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. Running a bit short of time, I want to talk a little bit about your post-career stuff. Maybe give us a little bit about England. You played for Huddersfield for, I think, 3 years, 1 year for Castleford.
I won't waffle on too much there. I went over there, as any man does, to just travel the world. Got over there, played a little bit of good football. It just shows the level of football wasn't as good as Australia. I was a starting player there. Got best and fairest in my second year. They made me captain of Huddersfield in my third year, which was amazing. I was the proudest man on the earth. And then I had a typical neck injury like a lot of the rugby league players do, and I had a fusion put in my neck, the metal plate put in my neck and 4 screws, which to this day has caused me nightmare. I had 13 cortisones in it last year, and my neck's not very good. But England was great. Huddersfield was great. Played for Castleford for a year. One of those players who played just too long. I should have retired the year before. I wasn't interested, but I couldn't get a job back in Australia. So I took another contract for extra year over there. Played a little bit long, but that trip to England was just all about going to Europe and traveling the world.
Yeah,
and playing a little bit of football at the
time.
Enough. Had a great time.
Did you visit Poland?
No. Are you from Poland?
Yeah, I'm Polish, so.
Dzień dobry.
That's great. That was good pronunciation.
Not bad.
Yeah. Dzień dobry means hello.
Background,
so,
so.
So, oh, what?
Mate,
Yes, yes.
I can do the chocolate vetches and
excellent.
a few of their
greetings.
That's really good.
Swear words here and there, but I can't say I've got the full language.
My next door neighbours in Sydney were Polish, so we used to catch and smoke eels so they could smoke the eels.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, they love the smoked stuff in Poland.
Yeah.
Before you press on there, Paul, I'm just interested. So it sounds like, because you were still relatively a young man when you hung up the boots. I think you wouldn't have been far past 30, but it doesn't sound like you have any regrets. Maybe.
No, mate, I was 30 and I was bored. I was bored of rugby league. I just burnt out, just bored. I didn't want to play anymore. I was laying in bed. I was 30 years of age. I just hurt my neck and I just lost interest. I was laying about 10 kilo overweight, and Tony Smith rang me from Leeds Rhinos, who were the world champions at the time. And I was laying in bed, 10 kilo overweight, and he rang me one Sunday morning before I flew home. He goes, "Benny, do you want to sign up for Leeds Rhinos?" I said, "You won the World Club Challenge. You're the best club in the world. You want me?" He goes, "I want your type of character around the club to rebuild, the character around the club." And I was like, he offered me some phenomenal money on a week-to-week basis. What about the biggest contract I ever got? And I was like, give me a month to think about it. And then anyway, Carson had come in with another offer and I signed with those, but I wasn't interested. I I just got burnt out from rugby league, and, people want to play on forever. I'd achieved all my goals in life. I just want to play first grade. I got a premiership. I wanted to go to England and just travel to there. I'd done it all. I never had aspirations to play State of Origin or Australia, and I know it probably wasn't good enough, but I never even thought about it. I just enjoyed myself and had a drink 2 days a week for probably 10 years, and can't do it now. But that's all I wanted to do in life, and happily married, kids, and come home to Australia and get a few acres and a few animals, and that's what I've done.
That's fantastic.
That's a good segue, Michael, into Ben Roarty, the man. You've done a bit of looking into some of the things Benny's involved with.
Yeah.
So, you can probably tee him up to tell us about what he's doing.
Yeah, so you retired in 2006, came back to Victoria, and I'm assuming that's because of your wife.
Yeah. Sydney didn't have much going for me. Parents moved down the South Coast, so I had no one in Sydney, brothers and family. But down here with the wife, and I love Victoria. So.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, so I think, again, my research showed me that you were a youth worker as one of your sort of first. Are you a PT? Are you still a PT at the moment?
Yeah, I still do a little bit of PT. I started a gym. I've opened a couple of gyms down here and moved them on and stuff like that. And one particular time, a group come in, and next minute I'm a youth worker. I did that for 12 months, working with young disadvantaged teenagers. And what a fantastic job, and humbling background, and meeting these kids in their background. It was tough for them, and to give them opportunity. And it was a great year or so that I did that, and that was a big part of my job. And I don't mind changing jobs all the time. So, for these people who want one job for 20 years, I think you should have 20 jobs and last 1 year in each job. So I just move on and loved it, and keep moving on and experiencing stuff. And you're probably going to get into the prison service after that. That's where I went.
Yeah, that was my next question. Yeah, you started working as a prison corrections officer, I think is the official term. Yeah, so tell us a bit about that, and I guess what that experience was like.
Yeah, moving into the accident I had at the end. Yeah, so I went in. I started as a prison officer. Loved the job. I had a good rapport with the prisoners. You're talking the worst of the worst and the biggest and baddest prisons in Victoria, and I just give them. I was like rugby league, black and white. Just respect me, I respect you. That's all you need. After 3 months, I was lucky enough, I moved into the riot squad, where you're dealing with, I've seen half the stuff I can't mention. I'm looking at writing a book at the moment on it. I've seen some stuff that, you can't print on TV and you shouldn't talk about, like people on fire and they've been passed away through accidents and stuff that goes on in prison. And, I dealt with a lot of, the pedophiles and the rapists and Adrian Bailey and, all these people, Tony Mockbell and all those people that, the worst of the worst in Victorian prisons, and I used to deal with them on a daily basis. So I've seen and done a lot there, and I was respected in my job. And then I drink driving. I got caught drink driving, so I lost my license for a couple of years. Thank God, while I did drink driving, I didn't hurt anybody. I just got it randomly stopped on the side of the road, and that was a positive change in my life, because previously I was a drink driver. I just, no excuses. I'm ashamed about it back then, and now the fact I got caught, lost my license for a couple of years and moved on, and I haven't done it since, and I'll never do it again. But I lost my job in the prison service in the riot squad for that, and that was my passion, dealing with those. I moved into the women's prison for a couple of years in the mental health unit and the gym, and that wasn't my calling. Then I moved to become a community corrections officer. and that's where I had a bit of an accident down there. If we're going to ask about that one. So
Yeah, you can elaborate on that if you like.
That one there, once again, I won't go too long a story, but I was supervising eight criminals out on a release, mowing some grass on Footscray Oval, and a truck drove past and exploded. And there was debris 50 metres in the air and 200 metres down the road. And the criminals I had with were mowing the grass at the time, and I wasn't near them. And I thought they'd put the petrol together from the lawnmowers and created a bomb and blown something up. So I thought it was a terrorist attack. And a big truck door landed near me, and all the windows within 50 metres around me exploded. The repercussions from the explosion blew all these windows out, like a bomb would go off in a war. And I dived on the ground and stood up, and I was half deaf, and then the criminals come towards me, and I'm starting punching on with them, thinking they were doing that. There was 8 of them, and I would have eaten them all alive. That's how angry I was.
Yeah.
And then it was evident, as I looked around, the truck driver had died. He had his head blown off. And another car was being smashed into, and the driver got out and collapsed, and the sound of the ringing car, the horn gets stuck on, still stuck in my head today. And I evacuated the prisoners out of there. And what had happened, it's on the news, it's on the media, a removalist truck was driving past Footscray Oval, and the gas bottles in the back were turned on, and he lit up a cigarette, and it blew his head off and just changed. Yeah, so that gave me the PTSD today, which is hypervigilant, and the nightmares and the loud noises and stuff like that. I'm fine now, and I typically say I haven't got PTSD, but then you talk to doctors and they want you to still have it. Oh, you've still got it. You've got PTSD for life. But the way I've been thinking, more recent times, is I haven't got it anymore. I had it. I don't need to be labelled with something. You can have a sickness or an illness at a point, but you don't have to have it forever. So, I left that job and never went back, but I would have loved to gone back as a riot squad officer, but that was about it. But yeah, I'm fine with that now, and I'd like to talk to people and help people with PTSD and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just going to jump in there. Sorry, Michael, Benny. I think it's beautiful you shared that with us, Ben. That's fantastic, mate.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing that. It's obviously something that's got had an enormous impact on your life, and I can only imagine what kind of horror that would have been. And just for anyone who's listening or watching, if you are experiencing any issues with your mental health, there is support out there. Contact Lifeline 13 11 14. There's always support and help available for you there. You've heard Ben share that story.
Well said.
He's had those experiences, and he's obviously found the help and support and would like to pass that on to others.
Yeah, I saw a psychologist, psychiatrist, had some medication for the time to clear me mind and help me get through that time. Great family support, friends and family, and talking about it worked for me. I'll never forget what happened. As soon as I hear a loud noise or someone walk up behind me, I'll still turn around, or I'll get goosebumps on my arms. I'm still affected by it, but I might have a couple of symptoms, but I don't think it's that bad. So thank you. Well said.
Yeah, no, very well said, Dubs. And so moving on to something I guess a bit more positive. You, as your t-shirts there, Camp for Cancer. So it's a charity that you started. You raise a lot of funds for cancer research, if I am correct. I think Peter Mack's one of the main, the recipients of the money you raise. Yeah,
yes.
Tell us a bit about that. How did that start? What events do you do? How do you raise the funds? So yeah.
Okay, so my parents had both passed away from cancer, probably 10 or so years ago. And then I went to an event down at the showgrounds on Anzac Day where you camped in swags to raise money for the RSL. And it was the most poorly run event I'd ever seen in my life. So I was driving home the next day and said, I'll run an event in this park near my house and raise money for charity. And that came about, and I rang a couple of trusted friends of mine. And the first year, 2015, all we did was have people camping in a private property, a couple of bands playing. We raised $8,500. Second year, 2016, we moved up to $18,500, and then fast forward last year and the year before, $60,000. And all we do is camp and listen to live music, have some raffles, auctions, and we raise a lot of money. And I've been lucky. People from around Australia are ringing me to have events like this down in Geelong, up in Mathaura, Queensland, and all over the area. People are ringing me, how are we going to do this again? And Camp for Cancer is becoming a pretty big name. And for those people interested, it's quite simple. Go to the campforcancer.org.au, Camp for Cancer with a 4.org.au, and keep up to date with us. And the timing of our event, our chat tonight is perfect, as this weekend, this Saturday, we've got our Camp for Cancer live event on this year. As this shirt says, it's live, so we can't come together and congregate. But we've got 8 beautiful artists coming together, including Dave Gleeson from the Screaming Jets and the Angels.
Outstanding.
And he's headlining for us a live event we're putting together this weekend, and we're going to rock and roll and still raise a little bit of money, but also raising awareness. You know, I've been lucky enough to tour the Peter MacCallum Cancer Centre, where the foundation is, and visit patients, visit scientists, and the scientists, they've got something like you guys and myself in common. You know, you're passionate about this at the moment. You've got the passions for life, and these scientists who actually work at the Peter MacCallum Cancer Centre, their passion is finding cures. And, you know, they celebrate finding a little breakthrough, like you see Lazo in the background now there, Dubs, right behind you. Yeah. This is how the scientists celebrate when they find a small breakthrough in their labs. And I've been in there and I've witnessed it. I've become friends with them. And to play a small part in cancer research around Australia is phenomenal. I don't particularly do much at the weekend on the event other than talk to all the campers and hear their stories, because every person's got a story about cancer. And people have said to me recently, said, Ben, we wish people like you were around 20 years ago, because I could reach out now, and I've got 5 friends who are in hospital with cancer, and I lost a dear friend 2 days ago to cancer, and it touches everybody. So my passion is to help raise money for cancer research and help out. And in saying that, I do have a young son who's got a little bit of autism and ADHD. He's 7. So last year I stopped work, full-time stopped work, and I'm his carer. So I'm home all day, every day, other than a little bit of personal training. And he's got his own clothing label out. He drew this nice tie. Yeah. And he's got a lizard on there. So he drew it, and I sent away to the printers, and he's got his own merchandise label as a 7-year-old kid. And awesome. So I've sort of moved into starting to train. I train him, and I train 2 other kids with autism, with fitness and, you know, balance and skills with their body, the coordination, because some of the kids with the autism or cerebral palsy, they lose a little bit of balance and haven't got that much. So along with the cancer research, I help the autistic kids, and just recently started a program last week with some homeless kids and stuff like that with a charity called One Voice, who they do the showers, the homeless people showers in the CBD. Yep. So my life just all revolves around helping charities and helping people at the moment. And I'm lucky enough to come from a great parent background and be surrounded by great people all the way through. I've had my ups and downs, and, you know, brushing with the law and being a rock star now and again, and being a bit of a dickhead over the years. But you can always come back to your morals that your family and friends teach you, and surround yourself with great people. And you've got no other option in life to help out, you know, and that's what we do. So that's been great chatting.
Ben, I just want to say, mate, that's a beautiful story. And it kind of comes to this perfect point that Ben Roarty, the rugby league player, gave us a lot of joy and a lot of fantastic memories. But I dare say that the things you're doing now, maybe Ben Roarty, the man, and the legacy you'll leave in the life that you lead is probably in many ways far more important than that. And there's something that... Yeah. For anyone who's listening, if you haven't been affected or touched by somebody who's had cancer in your life, then you'd be in a very lucky minority. So get behind Camp for Cancer, and we'll
look ahead in 20 years' time and say back, and you know, there's news yesterday that cervical cancer is just about, you know, if people are having the vaccines, et cetera, at the moment, in 10, 20 years' time, you won't have any cervical cancer in Australia. So that's a big step forward. Wow. Certainly, we need some more stuff around the brain cancer and melanoma, like Mark Hughes Foundation, who we do a little bit of work with in Newcastle about the brain cancer, and that's a big one. In childhood, brain cancer is even bigger. So people say to me, do you still hang around the footy, go to the footy? And I said, I do sometimes. I said, I say it was just a job for me. It was the best job in the world. But I don't harp on it too much. I still go to the games, but I take people to the games to let them experience it. Yeah. I still have an interest in it. I know the players, I go to reunions, I love it. But I say to people, that was just a job of mine for 10 years, rugby league. And now my job's now is create awareness about cancer research and help out with the autistic kids and moving forward. That's my, you know, when I was passionate about rugby league for those 9 years, not the 10th year or the 8th year, not the 9th year, that last year, I wasn't passionate that last year, and I'm passionate about making a difference in the people's lives. And I can do that because I've got a big network of friends, and certainly chatting to you guys today has been great. And, we'll stay in touch and expand the network again. And I'm sure catch up one day and have a lemonade, a coffee, or 2 beers. And,
we might have to join you. We'll get the showers running, get it water running down our back by the sound. If you Rusty Bowden, mate, we'll go wherever you like.
We'll take him out, mate. We'll take him out. But it's been great chat. And I appreciate every moment of it. And a little thing on the cartwheels behind you about, that Lazarus and Rodney Howe done one, and there's a famous picture. Everyone says Lazo doing the cartwheel, but it's actually Russell Bowden. Lazo's in the background.
It was Lazo.
But you find that picture, you see Lazarus in the background. You see this little, not this particular picture, but another one. The guy upside down. It's actual Russell Bowden. Lazarus in the background. But what happened? St. George have been kicking our ass. They kicked our ass in the first semi-final. They kicked our ass in they were kicking our ass in the grand final. And we sort of said, I don't know if it was before the game or after the game, we sort of said, if we win, let's do cartwheels, because we can't do backflips like Mundine and Blacklock.
Yeah.
So that is why we did the cartwheels. It was to stick it up St. George. You can do your back flips and your front flips and your side flips. We can do cartwheels. That's the story behind the cartwheels.
That's great.
I wouldn't trade it for anything. Nathan Blacklock had the pretty sweet dance moves after he scored. I reckon Lazo getting up on his hands was as good as anything I've seen. I remember watching that with my old man. We were just laughing and thinking that was fantastic.
We were laughing.
It was a wonderful memory, mate.
Yeah. And just on the cancer stuff, we'll put the link in the description of, all the Apple podcasts and all that. So, we'll try to spread the word as we can. Great. One little quick question before we actually sign off. Just, this is probably I don't know if it's going to come up. This is like my favorite. It's not coming up, is it? It's probably my favorite bit of Storm merchandise. Well, I'll have to describe what it is. It's the CD of We Are the Storm from 1999.
Have you got that?
Yeah, I've got that. I bought it. I think.
How? When?
Back in 1999.
I've been trying to buy a copy. I don't know where it is. We might have to copy it one day.
Oh, there you go. I can definitely, we can definitely work something out. So there's 3 tracks. There's We Are the Storm theme, We Are the Storm 3-minute version, and then We Are the Storm with players on backing vocal featuring Aaron Moore, Matt Geyer, Danny Williams, and yourself. So the question is, how did they pick those 4 guys? Was there a singing contest or something like that?
What a great question. What
Storm
a great
Idol.
way to finish. What a great way. As you know, the promotions go around, and there might be a promotion to go to a pub and do something, or a promotion to go here. Who wants to do this? You've got to do your fair share. And who wants to go and sing at Chapel Street on this thing? Yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Right, let's go. We went there and we were singing. And we had all microphones. It was 2-door microphone, and it was we are the Storm, we are the Storm, and we're number 1. And you had to say number 1, and I kept going number 1, and then and the guy's going, which one of you is not singing right? And like, I can't sing for shit. And I didn't know I was doing it wrong. And then he's cutting the microphones out, and Denny started doing it, and I was getting in trouble, and they were getting shitty with us because we weren't doing it right.
Yep.
Anyway, they cut the song, and it's still the same song they use to this day after they win a song. And if you hear the chorus in that song, they still use 20 years later, use that one with the Storm backing singers. The funny thing is, I was doing security at a wedding, would have been late last year. I walked into this big house, and this big guy standing there, and someone said, oh, this guy over here, he's into the Storm. He's called Bobby Valentine. Can you see that name on there?
Oh, yes, he wrote the song. Yep,
he wrote the song, and he looked at me and he says, I know you. And I said, where? He goes, I sung the Storm song. You were there. And I was like, what? That was 20 years ago, and I was doing security at his son-in-law's wedding or something like that. And we had a laugh and sung a couple of tunes. And then I went to try and get a copy of that stuff. Is there a photo on the back of us? Or there's not a photo?
Yeah, there is. There is a photo of you.
That's the photo I wanted to see. You might have to screenshot it and send it to me. Yeah. I haven't seen that in 20 years. Wow.
Yeah.
What an amazing story. And Bobby Valentine popped up, and I met him again and stayed in touch with him. And that's amazing. What a great question to finish off with.
Yep. No worries. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Ben. Yeah, Dubs, do you want to sign us off? You're good with that.
I shall indeed. It's been an absolute pleasure on the Graveyard Shift to be joined by Ben Roarty, Melbourne Storm Premiership star from 1999, and all-round good bloke as well. Get behind the can for council. Graveyard Shifters will be back again some point throughout the pre-season. Otherwise, enjoy your Premiership success and don't drink too much going into Christmas. Cheers, folks.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Ben. Thank you very much.
Thank you.